Hello friends and welcome to today's video. Reading slumps are no fun. When you are in a reading slump, everything feels so daunting and you start questioning whether you ever liked reading at all and whether any book will ever spark joy in you. If you're in a reading slump right now, first of all, I am so sorry. I feel for you. We've all been here and I'm just sending you a big hug. It's gonna be okay and it's going to pass, I promise you. I really hope that this advice could help you, so here is my guide of how to get out of a reading slump. My biggest advice when it comes to getting out of a reading slump is consuming bookish content. Now please don't get me wrong, I do not suggest that you doom scroll for hours. In fact, no matter how good or bad you're feeling, this is just never the way. It will never make you feel any better. But reasonable consumption of your favorite bookish content can actually spark some joy in you, and something that someone says might eventually make you want to pick up a book again. Now, depending on how you're feeling in your slump, this can be in different forms. You might want to binge some old vlogs of your favorite booktuber who has been a comfort person for you, or you might want to discover a new creator and get a new and fresh perspective that will help you to spark that joy again. One of the best social media platforms in my opinion is Pinterest. And if you find that you're not only in a bit of a reading slump, but you're also in a rut in general, and you find that you doom scroll for more hours than you normally do, maybe try to take your focus more onto Pinterest, because I feel like this is a platform that is much more difficult to doom scroll for too long, and this is more of an inspirational platform rather than the one where you just get into this loop of constantly watching another video after another video and so on. I do recommend you make a mood board for yourself on Pinterest with some of your favorite quotes and maybe some bookish inspiration, and then you can even make a collage out of it and set it as your desktop on your computer, or maybe print it out and put it above your desk or above your bed, wherever you're going to see it the most. And then maybe those images are going to inspire you to romanticize your reading, and eventually you will feel like picking up a book again. My second tip is going to a bookstore or a library, and that does not necessarily mean that you have to go and buy a new book. You can just set a couple of hours aside to just stroll the bookstore or the library, pick up books that call your name, maybe covers that just look pretty, books that you've never heard about, or popular books that you've been curious about. You can scan through the first couple pages of these books, and I can guarantee you that you would want to read something after your trip. There is just something in the air in the bookstores and in the libraries. I really think that making a trip like that could really help you. You can grab your favorite drink from a cafe or make it at home. You can put some music in your headphones and really romanticize that moment and slow down, take your time, look at all the books. You don't have to read any of those pages. You can literally just look at them and touch them, and I'm sure some little spark might come back if you do so. Another advice that I have is going to a used book sale or a library sale, because besides just being surrounded by books, there is also this element of treasure hunt. Now, you're more likely to purchase book on a used book sale or a library sale, so please be warned that this might be a possibility. You don't have to, obviously, but there is that element of excitement of digging through a bunch of used books and finding those that you've really been eyeing for a while or have been wanting to pick up for some time. That just adds an extra fun element to those sales and can make them a really fun way to try to get out of a reading slump. And the good thing about those sales is that usually books there are really cheap, so if you do end up purchasing one, it's not going to hurt your wallet that bad. Sometimes it's really not about reading, but more about routines. As adults, we do the same things every day. We wake up, we go to work, we make ourselves food, and sometimes reading can just fall a victim of a routine. While a healthy routine is really important and arguably essential to function well, at the same time, sometimes you need something new. And in this case, it might be a good idea to switch up your format. So for example, if you always read on your Kindle, you might want to actually pick up a paperback or a hardback to really feel the weight of the book in your hands, to feel the texture of the paper, the smell of the book, and those sensory inputs might be just exactly what you needed in that moment. If you're only reading physical books, you might want to go on a walk and start an audiobook. Audiobooks can be so incredibly immersive, and also you don't have to fully commit to only listening to an audiobook. You can do other things while you're listening to the audiobook, and that way you're almost reading reading on the background. You're not solely focusing on reading, you're also doing other activities in the meantime, and that might be a very gentle way to start introducing reading back into your life. Lastly, this also refers to the genres that you're reading. If you're an avid high fantasy adult reader, you might just want something a little more lighthearted. You might want to pick up a romantasy. If you have been working towards narrowing down your TBR for weeks and months, maybe it's time to leave it for the time being. Go to the library, grab books that just speak to you, something new that you've wanted to pick up. Your physical TBR is always going to be there for you whenever you're ready to come back to it. All I'm saying is that sometimes we really like to put these constraints on ourselves and make up rules that we really don't have to follow. You can leave your physical TBR for a while. It will be there when you're ready to come back to it. As long as you rediscover your love for reading, that should truly be the main focus and the priority. I know that you have a lot of books on your TBR. I know that probably every time you open any social media, you get a new book recommendation and you just feel like you need to read them all. While all of that is good, sometimes when you're in a reading slump, you might actually want to go back to things that are familiar and comforting. Try picking up a book that you've already read and loved, and maybe that familiar comfort is going to spark some joy in you and remind you why you love reading. If reading an entire book seems like an overwhelming task, that is okay. You can pick up your favorite book halfway through or on your favorite moment of the book and only read those parts that you really love. It's really not about consuming the entire story, especially considering those are the books that you have already read and you know the entire story. It's not about that. It's about you rediscovering your hobby again and rediscovering that love for reading and finding things that made you fall in love with reading in the first place. Similarly, I highly recommend picking up some of your childhood favorite books. And again, those books are going to be a reminder why you fell in love with reading in the first place and what big of a role this hobby has played throughout your entire life. So those books can be very great comfort reads that could help you get out of a reading slump. Talking about books is also one of the things that really helps me when I am personally in a reading slump. Talking to someone about your feelings, about your struggles, really relieves a bit of that pressure. Also, if you're talking to someone who is also a reader, that might help you to get some insights. Maybe they will share how they got out of a reading slump when they felt it. And it just helps so much to find someone who is like-minded and who shares the same interest as you. Now, if you don't have anyone in your life who is a reader, that's okay. You can always find communities online. Please be careful and protect your privacy at all costs. Please don't talk to any stranger on the internet and pour your heart out, but finding communities and talking to people who share the same hobbies as you can be such a powerful and healing thing. You can start by commenting on one of your favorite creators' videos, or you might want to start a Reddit thread discussing your favorite book theories or talking about your favorite books. But talking to people who have the same love for books as you do can really help you to get out of a reading slump. Also, if you have ever considered making your own YouTube channel or becoming a bookish creator yourself, I feel like despite what you might think, this might actually be the perfect time, because the more you yourself talk about the books that you love, the more you will rediscover the love of books. I personally think that making this channel was one of the best decisions that I ever made, and I'm so glad that I did. And it is such a fun way to express my hobby and my interests. So if that's something that's been on your mind for a while, I highly recommend it, because it can be such a fun activity and it can take you to so many places, and it's just a lot of fun. Lastly, if nothing is working, sometimes you might just need to step away from reading for a while and give yourself as much time as you need in order to take a break. You might want to try a new hobby. There are so many out there. You can try cozy gaming, you can do some ceramics, you can do crocheting, sports, painting. There are so many things out there in the world that are so fun, and you might need to hyperfixate on a new hobby for a while, and then books will always be there and you will always be able to go back to reading whenever you feel ready. It's okay to take a break. There is no pressure. There is no one sitting over you telling you that you have to be reading right now. I know that being in a reading slump sometimes makes you feel like you're behind, like you need to catch up, but realistically there is nothing to catch up. This is your life and you choose where you put your time and energy. And if this hobby is just not working out for you right now, you might just need a break, and that's okay to take some time off. You will always be able to come back to reading whenever you're ready, but it might be a period where you just want to focus on some other hobbies as well. Okay, so now that we are done with the advice section of this video, let me give you some book recommendations for when you are in a reading slump. These are some of the books from different genres that I always recommend for those who are in a slump, because all of them are very fast-paced, a lot of them are pretty short, and I feel like you could find something here that might spark your interest. So the first book that I would like to talk about is actually one of my most recent reads, and that is The House in the Cerulean Sea. This is a cozy fantasy, and I am someone who doesn't necessarily love all cozy fantasies, but this one was brilliant. In the story, you are following Linus, the main character, who is kind of like a clerk. He works in an office and his job is to investigate orphanages that house magical children, make sure everyone is taken care of, make sure the conditions are good there. His life is pretty boring and pretty lonely, and one day he gets an assignment from an extremely upper management. Yes, that is literally what his bosses are called, extremely upper management, where they assign him to go on this remote island because there is an orphanage that holds some of the most dangerous kids, and there is quite a bit of mystery around this orphanage. And so his assignment is to go there and spend the month on this remote island, making sure that these kids are okay and taken care of, but also that the public is safe from these kids, because as I said, they're very dangerous individuals. And so he takes this assignment, and the set of characters of this book is just wonderful. All of these kids are so lovable. All of the characters of this book are so incredibly lovable. It's just a cozy, feel-good read. It's also very fast-paced, especially at the beginning. You have a bit of a mystery because you know that there are quite a few secrets regarding this orphanage, so you kind of go along this journey to uncover those secrets. It's just a stunning, found family kind of story. It's about finding joy in life, and something that I have said previously is like breaking from a routine and finding things that actually make you happy and bring you joy. I'm definitely going to be checking out more books by this author, and I do think that it is a great read for when you're in a reading slump. The next two books that I often recommend to those who are in a reading slump are A Monk and Robot series by Becky Chambers. So the books being A Psalm for the Wild Build and then A Prayer for the Crown Shy. Becky Chambers is a queen of cozy sci-fi. Her books are always such feel-good stories, and these particular ones I think are her most light-hearted feel-good stories that I love dearly. As you can see, I've annotated these books heavily. These books truly feel like a warm hug. In this story, you are following a non-binary main character, sibling Dex, and they essentially kind of lost their meaning in life. They don't really know why they're doing what they do anymore, so they decide to go on a trip and kind of take up a new job in order to find themselves again. And along the journey, they meet a robot, Mosscap. Now, Mosscap is one of the most awkward characters I have ever read. He's so incredibly funny. He is a wild robot that has lived his entire life in the wilderness, and he doesn't actually know anything of how people operate, but he is extremely curious. So he asks a lot of questions, a lot of inappropriate questions in inappropriate times, and it's just such a joyful, fun read. And the reason why I think these two books are great for a reading slump, not only because they are very light-hearted and fast-paced, they're also very short books, as you can see, but also I think that when you're in a reading slump, you kind of start to question your hobbies and you start to question everything, right? And these books are exactly about questioning a little bit the meaning of life and what you're supposed to do in life. So these books are exactly about that, and they essentially say that it's okay to be lost sometimes, it's okay to not really know what you want to do and where you want to go next. It's not about that, it's about you and how you're feeling in the moment and so on. So I really feel like these two books are fantastic. I mean, I think everyone should read this at least once because they're such great stories, but also if you are in a reading slump, these two books might be exactly what you need. If you're more in a mood for something contemporary, I always recommend Taylor Jenkins Reid books for when you're in a reading slump because they're so fast-paced. I, for example, here have Malibu Rising, but my favorite one by her is actually Carrie Soto is Back. That story is about a tennis player and you're kind of following her as she tries to rebuild her career. She once had a world record and then she retired, but someone beats her world record and she decides decides to come back out of the retirement to prove once more that she's the best in the world. And that story is just so fast-paced that it is perfect for when you're in a reading slump. And honestly, I read that book within like 1 or 2 days. Pretty much that's the case for every single Taylor Jenkins Reid book that I have read thus far. And I think books by this author are really great for when you're in a reading slump. I also previously really enjoyed her book Maybe in Another Life, which I know is not very popular. Honestly, I think this book is so cheesy, but it kind of works because it's not really pretending to be anything more than that. It's just like a cheesy, fun, entertaining book. All of Taylor Jenkins Reid books are just so fast-paced that you can fly through them within just a few hours. If you're looking for something a bit darker that also has an element of mystery, you might really enjoy I Who Have Never Known Men by Jacqueline Hartman. I recommend this book a lot on my channel because it is one of my favorite books of all time, or rather the book that had one of the biggest impressions on me, and I really enjoyed it so much. You're following one of the women who are locked in a cage underground. You don't really know why, and none of the women know why either. And along the main character, you start to uncover a bit of the mystery of this world. I have to say this book is pretty dark, and also it doesn't really give you any answers to your questions, and it just bugs me every single day of my life that I will never really know all of the answers to all of the mysteries that I've been presented in this book. But one of my hobbies is like deep diving into Reddit threads and reading all of the different theories that people have about this book. It's definitely a very interesting piece of speculative fiction that I personally really enjoyed, and also this book is pretty short. I'm sure it is under 200 pages, so again, when you're in a reading slump, you want something that is not going to take too much time because you don't have too much energy to put into reading at that time. So I think something like that could really work for you. Another book that I read this year that I think is a pretty good option for when you're in a reading slump is Ready Player One. This is a young adult fiction. It is set in a future where the economic crisis and also the climate change have really taken a toll on Earth. But in this world, there is this virtual reality video game that is created by James Halliday, and after his death, there is a message that's being sent to all of the players of the game that James Halliday is going to leave his entire ownership of this video game Oasis to someone who is able to solve some of the clues that he left within the Oasis. So we are following the main protagonist, who is one of the teenagers who is really fascinated by this mystery, and he's trying to solve all of those clues and find the prize that was left by the creator of the Oasis. This book is very fast-paced, and I think because it is YA, it also reads very easily. The language is very accessible, which is perfect for when you're in a reading slump. You really want something that takes as little time as possible so that you can fly through it. I really enjoyed this. This was very entertaining. It is truly like watching a movie. It's not perfect by no means, but it's definitely one of the books that I think could really work well for a reading slump. And then lastly, I have to recommend my favorite author of all time, Andy Weir. Personally, I think for a reading slump, I would definitely recommend The Martian by him. My favorite book by him is Project Hail Mary, but I think Project Hail Mary takes a little bit longer to get into the main plot when you are fully hooked and you really want to know what is happening. But The Martian does that pretty much from the first page. In the story, you are following an astronaut, Mark Watney, and he gets stranded on Mars, and you are following his journal as he's trying to find a way to survive and be eventually rescued if that is possible. It is such a fascinating story. It is about resilience, it's about the will to survive, it is about creativity as well. I think in general, Andy Weir writes in such an addictive way where at the end of every chapter, something goes so well and you get so happy for the main character, and then something else goes wrong and you start questioning how on earth would it be possible to get out of this new situation and new problem, and then there's something else that goes wrong, and on and on and on. And that makes a very addicting writing, and it makes this book very easy to fly through. It's just such a fascinating story, and I recommend it all of the time. That is going to be all for today's video. I really hope that it was helpful in case you're in a reading slump. Please remember to be patient with yourself and be kind to yourself, because reading slumps, they just happen. It's okay if they do, but as with everything else, they're temporary and they will also pass. Thank you so much for watching this. I really appreciate you being here, and I will hopefully see you in the next one. Bye!